One thing I love about the Sermon on the Mount as we continue our journey through this incredible teaching section, I love how comprehensive it is. That in Jesus' signature teaching on the kingdom of God, he leaves no stone unturned. Jesus teaches us about true Christian character in the Beatitudes. Poor in spirit, meek, persecuted. He speaks of our dealings and our interactions with other people when he reinterprets the laws and he brings them more in line with the values of the kingdom. Jesus teaches us that our acts of righteousness must be done for God's glory and for God's glory alone. He teaches us that it is possible to do the right thing in the wrong way, giving, praying, fasting. All of those things, if they are done for the praise and the acclaim of humanity, that is false giving and false praying and false fasting. And really, we can insert any act of righteousness in there. If we are doing it simply to receive a hearty pat on the back, then we're doing it for the wrong reason. If it's the praise of humanity that you are after, Jesus tells us early on in Matthew chapter 6 that if it's the praise of humanity that you're after, then you'll get it. But that's all you'll get. The Sermon on the Mount, it teaches us about loving our enemies. It deals with marriage and divorce. It teaches us how to pray. We just finished looking at petition by petition through the Lord's Prayer. And in today's section that we come to, a tiny section, a small section of verses, Jesus speaks to us about our priorities in life. He speaks to our relationship to our possessions. No stone is left unturned. The section that we're studying today, it's Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 to 21. If you have a Bible, go ahead and grab it. We're going to read those verses in just a few minutes. But the section we're studying today, it's a fairly straightforward and a fairly simple passage. I say simple in that it's simple in its structure. It's 3 verses, and each verse makes an important point. But even though it is simple in its structure, it's rich and deep in its meaning. And it's very difficult to put into practice the implications of this passage. So let's read the passage together, then I will outline the overall structure for you, and then we will dive deep into the parts. If you have a Bible, go ahead, open it up, Matthew chapter 6. We're going to read verses 19 to 21. Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 to 21. Hear the words of God. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The words of God. I said the structure is fairly straightforward. It is fairly simple. Jesus gives his listeners 2 commands, and he makes one statement. 2 commands and one concluding statement. First, Jesus gives his listeners a negative command. Do not store up treasures on earth. And then he goes on to list the reasons why. That's verse 19. He follows up the negative command of verse 19 with a positive command in verse 20. Don't store up earthly treasures, but do store up heavenly ones. And he goes on to explain why storing up heavenly treasures is a good idea. And in verse 21, Jesus makes a statement about the condition of the human heart. Jesus knows the human heart. He knows that we are prone to get attached to things. We are prone to focus on a certain item and have that item consume our lives, whether it's trends or a person or a profession. In verse 21, Jesus says, where our treasure is, what we focus on, what we dream about, what we fret about is ultimately where our heart will be. More than that, as we'll look at the end of the sermon today, our heart will naturally draw us towards those things. So the implication of that statement is that we as Christians must be focusing on the ways of God, focusing on heavenly treasure that will last forever. So that's the passage in broad sweeping strokes. We just used a roller coater here, and we just painted with broad sweeping strokes. Now I want to put the roller coater away. And I want to get the fine tip brush out. And I want us to look at this passage in detail. In teaching about a Christian's proper relationship towards our possessions, Jesus first gives a negative command. Do not store up earthly stuff. Don't store up earthly stuff. If the goal of your life is more, 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 and more, how much is enough? Oh, just a little bit more. If all you ever think about is how to attain more clothes, more guitars, more tools, more books, it can be a good thing, a neutral thing. But if the sum total of your life is just simply boils down to accumulating more and more stuff, and that life is being wasted. Look at what Jesus says about the durability and the sustainability of earthly treasures. Jesus says that earthly treasure is subject to decay. It can be ruined by vermin, destroyed by nature, stolen by thieves. See, we have to remember what life was like in the ancient world. Life was hard in the ancient world. Life was precarious, and even if you had nice clothes or nice things, there was no guarantee that it would stay nice if you had nice clothes. A moth would love to feed on it. If you owned some precious metal objects with no climate control, no way to control moisture or humidity, metal objects would tarnish. They would rust. And when Jesus is talking about rust, he is really speaking about anything that would naturally destroy objects, natural disasters, flood, famine, locusts, mice, rats, fire. A couple of years ago, I had a fire in my shop. I lost all my tools. But a handful of hand tools and my table saw. Everything else was gone. The rest of the stuff, along with the building itself, was a complete write-off. Fire. Fire, a destructive force that wipes things out in just a matter of minutes. But even if you live on the high ground, so you don't have a flood, maybe you have an irrigation system in your crops so that you don't fear famine, using some pesticides to keep the locusts away. Maybe you got a sprinkler system in place to protect against fire. You set some mouse traps. Not that any of that happened in the ancient world. It doesn't stop thieves from breaking in and stealing your possessions. Again, think about life in the ancient world. In the ancient world, banking was in its infancy, and no one trusted it. And so money was kept in the house, or money was stored up in like physical goods. Homes didn't have security systems. It made them easy targets for thieves. I hope you're beginning to see the precariousness of earthly possessions. What Jesus is saying here is that earthly possessions are perishable. They are temporal. They are transient. They are here today, potentially gone tomorrow. Now, in our world, we don't really fear moths. Okay, some of us fear moths as they fly towards us. We don't fear moths destroying our clothes. We don't really worry about rust ruining our possessions. Mothballs take care of the pests. Some WD-40 and a wire brush takes care of the rust. I spray a protective coating on my tools that have cast iron tables on them, and they don't rust. In our world, it seems like earthly treasures are a little more stable. But they're not here today and gone tomorrow. But Jesus' words hold true. They're still perishable. One downturn in the market, your retirement savings could be depleted. Poor financial decisions could lead to ruin. Your personal information could be leaked online. You could get caught up in an online scheme. Your credit card number could be stolen, and people could make fraudulent purchases on your credit card. You could still have a fire or a flood that destroys everything. Today, we don't fear moths and rust, but earthly treasures can still be destroyed in any number of ways. Earthly treasures are still perishable, transient, and temporal. Now, before we look at Jesus' positive command, I want to make one point of clarification. Jesus isn't condemning owning possessions. He isn't condemning owning possessions. He isn't saying that his followers shouldn't own things. He isn't saying that it's wrong for his followers to have bones in the bank account. He's not saying that you shouldn't be saving for a rainy day. Remember, it's the love of money, not money itself, that is the root of all evil. And even here, Jesus isn't prohibiting stuff. He is prohibiting making stuff the sum total of your life. The preacher in Ecclesiastes can help us out here. He's a very trustworthy teacher. And he tells us he tried everything. He tried everything in order to find fulfillment. He built houses. He worked hard. He was lazy. He tried sex. He tried a good reputation. He tried power. He tried various philosophies. And even though he tried all of these things in order to find fulfillment, he places them all into the same category: vanity. Chasing after these things is like chasing after vapor. It's like trying to grab fog. You just can't do it. They're all cursed with the same affliction: temporality. Here today, and potentially gone tomorrow. The point Jesus makes is ultimately the point that Job made. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall go back to the earth. In other words, you can't take anything with you. Earthly treasures, you cannot take any earthly treasures with you into eternal life. Jesus stresses that his people, his followers, are to make deposits now that will last for eternity. We are to be focused on matters that have lasting consequences. Don't store up earthly treasures, Jesus says in verse 19. And in verse 20, Jesus says, do. He continues with a positive command. Do store up heavenly treasures. Jesus tells his followers that heavenly treasures are unaffected by the disastrous forces of the earth. Moths can't touch deposits made in heaven. Rust can't ruin heavenly treasures, and thieves cannot steal what is in the heavenly storehouses. The comparison is stark. What is of more value? Something that is here today and gone tomorrow? Or something that is imperishable and will last for all of eternity? Or if I can refer to eternity in this way, how important will money or earthly treasures be to you in 50 billion years? Answer: not very. And when we look at the comparative durability of these two options, we clearly see where our focus and where our priorities should be. Or as we'll see in just a little bit, where our heart should be. So let's look at this heavenly treasure. I haven't preached in a while. My voice is a little hoarse. I think it's important to first make note of what heavenly treasure isn't. Jesus isn't teaching some kind of doctrine of merit, as if we could accumulate good works done here on earth as a kind of credit account in heaven we can draw on then. That idea is nothing more than works righteousness, trying to earn more of God's favor and earn more of God's love. The more you do on earth, the richer you'll be in heaven. So not a works-based righteousness. So what is it? Not a system of merits and demerits. What is the heavenly treasure that we are to be storing up? And how do we do it? Well, heavenly treasure is the development of a Christ-like character. Heavenly treasure is increasing in faith and hope and love. Storing up heavenly treasure is a faithful witness so that others will hear the good news of salvation through the blood of Jesus. Storing up heavenly treasure is using our money and possessions for kingdom purposes. Do you see? Do you see how moths and rust and thieves cannot touch these things? We store up heavenly treasure by belonging to God's kingdom, by living according to kingdom purposes. Paul says in Colossians chapter 3 that since we have been raised with Christ, we are to focus on the things above, not on the things of earth. Here's the beautiful thing about the heavenly treasure Jesus speaks of. We don't have to wait until eternity to enjoy the benefits of them. We don't have to wait until eternity to enjoy the benefits of them. Yes, on the new earth, when everything is made new and we will live in the house of the Lord forever, we will perfectly enjoy the treasures of heaven. We will be more like Jesus than we could ever imagine. But in the here and now, we can experience those heavenly treasures. If you give to kingdom causes, you have the joy of watching ministries flourish. You have the joy of seeing God's kingdom expand. The joy of seeing it go to the ends of the earth. If you increase in faith and hope and love, you will enjoy greater intimacy with God. You will trust Him more. You will see the future with hope instead of despair. You will love God and your neighbor with a love that you didn't even know was possible. If you develop a Christ-like character, then your light will shine and others will see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Yes, we make deposits in heaven and heavenly treasure, but we get to enjoy them. God's people here on earth. So when we compare the durability of earthly possessions over heavenly treasures, it's not really a contest at all. It's not really a contest at all. We should be investing in things that have eternal rewards, not focusing on things that we ultimately can't take with us and have no eternal value. And in verse 21, Jesus makes a concluding statement. It's a statement about the condition of the human heart. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Remember what the Bible means when it talks about heart. For us, the heart is the organ that pumps blood. It's for us maybe the seat of emotion. But in the first century world, the heart means the core of a person's being. It's the real inner person, the source of their spiritual, their emotional, their psychological life. And Jesus warns his listeners, both in the first century and today. He says that our lives will drift relentlessly towards our treasure. Our lives will drift relentlessly towards our treasure because our hearts will take us there. Our hearts will take us there. Jesus knows that we tend to move towards that which we fix our gaze on. So the implication being, if we fix our gaze on earthly treasures, we will constantly be drifting towards them, from one to another, from one trend to another trend, from one object to another object, so that we will always be accumulating more and more stuff, because enough is never enough. We will always need more. Where your treasure is, whatever you focus on, whatever your goal is, or whatever you dream about, if you treasure material goods, that's where you'll be drawn to. But that's not the way of life for a follower of Jesus. That's not how we are to live our lives. We aren't to be fixing our gaze on stuff. We are to fix our gaze on Jesus. If our heart will naturally draw us toward our treasure, then we must treasure Jesus most of all. If we are going to drift relentlessly towards our treasure, then we have to treasure God's kingdom and its purposes. That's why Paul writes in Colossians that we are to treasure the things above, not earthly things. Why Jesus says here, store up earthly treasures. Why the writer in Hebrews says, fix your eyes on Jesus. We are to relentlessly pursue the ways of God. Train ourselves to develop a consistent and deep love for God's kingdom. Unswervingly adopt loyalty to kingdom values, and we are to delight in what God approves. So where is your treasure? Where is your heart leading you? If it is leading you towards earthly things, then I implore you, drop those things. Let go of them. Whatever it is. And begin chasing after those things that have eternal benefits. And if you are already chasing after heavenly treasure, I encourage you to keep going. Keep seeking. Keep fixing your gaze on Jesus and reap the blessings and the benefits that he will pour out on you. Here again, we come to the Lord's table, the first Sunday of the month. As you can tell, I'm recording this after I recorded my sermon, so I don't really have a whole lot of voice left. But as we gather around the Lord's table, I want us to take some time to affirm our common faith, to pray the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray as we come around the table and we celebrate what Jesus has done for us. We participate in the meal that he gave to us, so that we will never forget the sacrifice that he made on our behalf. His body broken for us, the bread that represents that, his blood shed for us, and we have the cup to remind us of Jesus' shed blood. So right there in your homes, I would invite you to say along with me. Say together the words of the Apostles' Creed. Let's pray together the Lord's Prayer. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit and born of the Virgin Mary. He suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended to the dead. The third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended to heaven and is seated at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From there he will come to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen. Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Let's pray, giving thanks for the bread and for the cup. God, again, I thank you for the opportunity that we have to gather around your table. Thank you for the elements that are before us, of the bread, representing the broken body of Jesus. And thank you for the sacrifice that you made on our behalf, Jesus. We thank you that you were beaten and bruised for our transgressions. But we also thank you that by your stripes we are healed. And we thank you for the cup that represents your shed blood. We thank you that by the shedding of your blood, we can have our sins forgiven. We thank you for this meal that you have given to us so that we will always remember the sacrifice that you made on our behalf. Pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. The Lord Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is given for you. And do this in remembrance of me." And in the same way, after supper, we're told that Jesus took the cup. He said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink of it in remembrance of me." And the Apostle Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 11 that as often as we eat of the bread and we drink of the cup, we proclaim the Lord's death until he comes again. Amen.